And here are the big topics that we're talking about this week, including a race that took place while Birmingham SMX was underway. That's the FIM Oceania Cup. This is a race for women that took place in Australia, and the home team won. Sounds kind of like Motocross of Nations with Team Australia winning in 2024. But shout out to key players here. Team USA finishes second, great by them. And can I call her Charlie XCX? She's like the big popular thing on the scene here. Charlie Cannon of Australia, that's who led that team to victory. So a lot to unpack. Great job by the American women and great job by Australia as well.
Yeah, that's 2 years in a row the Australians have brought this race home. And Charlie had a big come-from-behind ride there to seal the deal. Congratulations to the Australians. USA comes up a tiny bit short, but they did have a great outing down in Australia.
Yeah, Lala Turner, one of the ones that rode very well for Team USA, along with Jordan Jarvis. And this bridges us toward the WMX women's racing in America coming up this year. So WMX had a bit of a quiet return to the pro scene in 2024. Racing will be at a much higher level in 25. You look at the schedule here. They're going to race on Friday afternoon at the first 3 Pro Motocross rounds of the year and the final 3 Pro Motocross rounds. And that will be their championship calendar. Last year, they raced at a lot of the big amateur races and a few Pro Motocross rounds. Now it's all Fridays at Pro Motocross. That's cool. I think for WMX, yes, obviously, but also I think cool for the fans going to these races to have some pro gate drops on Friday.
Yeah, I want to see who comes over. Are we going to see Charlie Cannon maybe make an appearance? Are we going to see lots of Van Drunen make an appearance from coming over from Europe? I think this opens the door to be on the stage of the Pro Motocross weekend that is going to draw these racers in. So it's a welcome return. We used to have so much intrigue around these type of races, and I think we're headed back that direction.
Yeah, that's cool. Definitely big times for women's sports all around, and that includes everything in SMX. Let's go to another race that was taking place, this one at Birmingham, but again, maybe didn't have quite as much spotlight on it as Chase Sexton winning the 450 class. We had a rider from Tahiti compete in the KTM Junior Supercross Challenge. I thought that was wild, but here's JT saying, yep, I know all about that. I did it myself.
Yeah, so right after I finished my professional career, I went down to race in Tahiti and raced on, I'm sure, on the tracks that this young ripper was on down there as well. So this was close to my heart. I know some of the people involved with his program. And yeah, it just goes to show that SMX is a worldwide program. And imagine the experience for this kid at 8 years old to travel to the USA and race in Birmingham. That's something he'll never forget. So yeah, smiles all around.
If I can get this right, that is Amona Besert, who raced there from Tahiti on that number 3. So that was definitely cool to see. Look, we have said this starting with last weekend, and we're going to do it every weekend for the rest of the Monster Energy Supercross calendar. All open stadiums and all cities for the most part where we have seen inclement weather before. Birmingham was great this year. You were in a great mood all weekend due to the sunshine. But we go to Seattle. You can't talk about Seattle without rain and not having a roof. So just talk about how this could affect the track.
Well, it's always, I think front of mind. When you think about Seattle, you think about, okay, what is the racetrack going to look like? And this weekend will be no different. Now, we may get lucky and not have rain throughout the evening. And I know that's your calling card. We just need a window without rain to salvage this thing. But I think how it affects the track, because it is going to rain throughout the week. It's going to rain all the way up through Friday, and that's going to make it softer. The jumps are going to be more difficult, ruddy conditions. Think about last year, how capable and potent Levi Kitchen was in those conditions. That's going to be the type of racetrack we see no matter what. So let's hope we get some sunshine or at least average conditions on Saturday, so we're not dealing with a full mutter. But it's not going to be a Birmingham. It's not going to be one of these racetracks where guys can put triples and quads together. You're going to have to think about the racetrack in a little bit different way. What is the most efficient way? Something I can do lap after lap, because it's a 21-minute race. Putting in one good lap and then 3 bad ones is not the secret to success for a race like Seattle.
Now, look, I would love to do a victory lap because I'm about to show you the weather report. And I'm about to be proven right again that we only need a small window. As far as the weather itself is concerned, this is what I'm always talking about. So, expected to have weather on Thursday, rain, Friday, rain, and then Saturday, nice and sunny. I always say that's all the SMX track crew needs is a window. That moment they pull the tarps off, which when there's bad weather is normally about 4 o'clock. They really only need about 4 p.m. to 10 local time. But if the track is already going to be changed before that, I can't take the victory lap, JT.
I'm going to go on the record right now. This is going to come out Thursday afternoon. It's not going to be a picture-perfect sunny day like that beautiful graphic showed us. There's no way that's happening. I just want to put it out there on the front end. We'll reconvene here a week from Thursday and talk about my prediction, but that's where I'm going. It's Seattle. Come on, people. There's no way we're going to have blue skies in Seattle on Saturday.
Look, I can't wait. I've got the power. I'm in the booth this weekend. I'm just going to start the show no matter what and say it's picture perfect, blue skies and sunshine in Seattle. Fake news or not, that's what I'm going to go with just to win the argument. You can shake your head. It doesn't matter what we think. Let's talk to the contenders. Cooper Webb knows there's all open stadiums from here on out. Here's what he thinks.
It's not a worry, but it's definitely something that we're not naive to, right? We're going 8 open stadiums and 4 or so in the Northeast, and then next weekend in Seattle where it's likely to be wet. But I like my chances in the wet, rainy, ruddy stuff. I've always done well, and it's the same for everybody, right? So with that being said, we'll just kind of stick to course, and if it rains, it rains, and if it doesn't, great.
You know what, JT? That interview just continues a long tradition of every racer ever always saying, if it's muddy, that's going to favor me. I'm going to be good. They always take the positive.
Yeah, and I think for Webb, if it's a full-blown mudder, you think about like 2006 Seattle, I don't think it favors him. I think it's actually the opposite. But if it's like last year, remember how great he was. A slow, methodical racetrack where you have to think about where you're going and make smart decisions. I do think, to Cooper Webb's point, that works for him. So it's a fine line between that type of racetrack and then full-on mud. But even if it's not the sunny forecast that we got, if it's just average conditions on Saturday, it will be more of what Cooper Webb's looking for in a racetrack.
It is going to be awfully tough to predict these races going forward. Not just Seattle, but about to run a gauntlet for 250 East. They get this one weekend off, and then that big northeastern swing, Foxborough, New Jersey, just outside of New York, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. Again, open stadiums, and a wide open class that is still not delivered a repeat winner. 5 for 5 on new winners with Nate Thrasher jumping on board at Birmingham.
Yeah, this is going to be a great run. You think about these venues, the setup we have, the points in both classes. Chase Sexton's brought it back to the forefront. The 250 East is tighter. Like Vialle has that 10-point lead, but it doesn't feel like he's really running away with anything. He hasn't been dominant in any way. I think you have to come to these races and watch this. We do a fantastic job bringing you the races on Peacock and NBC, but to be there in person, it's just a different experience. And I think this is going to be a season that you're going to want to see in person.
Last year, Seth Hamaker showed up in Philadelphia, and the fans were rabid for him. And that was Seth Hamaker then. There's a chance we're going to Philadelphia this year with him maybe being the fastest guy in the class. Maybe by then he's got more wins. He's right there battling for the title right now. That could be epic. We get to Philadelphia in a couple weeks, and Hamaker's in the run for this title, which it looks like he is going to be with the way he's riding. I just want to give a shout out to him. The improvement in Seth Hamaker, he's always been fast, JT. But to back it up consistently right now, this is a big step.
It is, and I think everybody not named Jalek Swoll would be excited for another Philadelphia performance. But he feels like he's in this championship hunt, and the riding certainly has been. I've mentioned a few times the food poisoning in Detroit has been the equalizer. Otherwise, he would be the headline. Maybe he doesn't have the red plate, but he certainly would be a very specific factor in this.
It's going to be madness at those races. And you never know when the action is going to happen. Courage is our next topic, and that is Malcom Stewart, innocent bystander to Justin Hill, who's normally great with busting out crazy rhythms at odd times. Well, it didn't work in practice at Birmingham. He crashed, and then he takes out Malcom, and then Malcom ends up having his second best race of the year after this.
Yeah, Malcom, he fought through, we really don't know exactly what the injury was. It probably would just be the lower leg injury, but you could see how bad he was limping. And the biggest key here is adrenaline. That is such an underrated part of racing for all of these riders. You can think about Nate Thrasher, who was the Birmingham 250 East winner with his finger, him being able to ride through the first few rounds while he had just had surgery on that finger. I think Malcom Stewart was in that same camp where he's just like, you know what, when I put my helmet on, it's mind over matter. I'm not going to think about how much pain I'm in. I have a job to do. and he certainly did that. That was a vintage Malcom Stewart performance. He was jumping sections consistently that other riders weren't. And, with better starts, who knows what he could have been capable of on Saturday.
Well, I'm certainly smiling when I see Malcom Stewart ride that well, because now two of my central tenants, JT, have both made it into this episode. If you have sunshine on Saturday, you cannot have a mud race on Saturday. Let's hope that one comes true. And the other thing, I hate this, when there's an assumption that when there's a two-rider title fight, if rider A wins, rider B will finish second. Malcom Stewart and Aaron Plessinger got in between. They took points away from Cooper Webb, so I got both of them in. Let's not forget that 250 West resumes for one weekend in Seattle. It has been a wild dot on the schedule their season. Hayden Deegan is the red plate holder. He somehow had a wilder weekend not racing when everyone was in Birmingham than everyone that actually was racing in Birmingham. Typical Deegan fashion, though. He's leaned in on that. I guess here's what really matters. He has the 12-point lead over Julian Beaumer. A, do you think the off-track stuff is going to have any effect on Deegan? And whether it does or doesn't, what do we get from Beaumer, Davies, Shimoda, the guys that are left battling him for this championship?
Well, to your first point, I don't think it will. He's so defiant, and he's leaning into this stuff. So I don't think any noise or anything that's happened in the off week will affect him. I think if anything, it just boisters his personality even more. But I am curious to see whether Joe Shimoda, Juju Beaumer, who are both dealing with injuries that had happened in prior rounds, but they've had time to heal. Hopefully, Juju Beaumer has gotten back onto the practice track. I want to see what they have, because it really felt like Hayden Deegan was kind of taking over. He extended the points lead. He looked like the best guy, even with a third at the showdown. He looked like the best 250 West racer. So I want to see if we see continuation of that. Did Hayden Deegan steal the momentum away, and now he's just going to extend it? And let's not forget about Cole Davies on a track that will require precision the way that Seattle will. That is a calling card for Cole Davies. So let's see if he can be a factor in this down the stretch as well.
Okay, so we said we would resume the talk of the 450 standings. Again, it's 8 points between Cooper Webb and Chase Sexton with 7 to go. And as I keep pounding home, other riders can still get in there. It didn't take a disastrous weekend for Webb for him to finish 4th and lose half of that point lead. So I think we're in for more of this. We talked about it last week with the open stadiums coming up. It's not quite tied, but it's anyone's between these two with 7 races to go, I feel.
It is, and these two are very close, and it's very fitting that we're going to a racetrack in Seattle where they had one of the closest, it may have been the closest finish ever, but it was right there. They battled to the end. Jet Lawrence made that pivotal mistake, but those two really put on a show, and they're both going to be thinking about that going in. Now, to your earlier point, yes, AP and Malcom got in there, but it could go the other way too. Think about Justin Cooper. He is certainly capable of playing a role here. And oh yeah, there's that number 3, the Eli Tomac, that's looming also. Now, can he get back? Does he race the last couple of rounds? Is he able to beat the likes of Chase Sexton? Not maybe at 100% yet. Would he want to play a role in any sort of team tactics? Anyway, just something to watch. Let's see if those other positions, I know it's a big point for you, but it certainly could play a role here in 2025.
All right, we are fired up. This is going to be a great race in Seattle. If last year was any indication, if you want to watch it, Race Day Live starts at 2:30 Eastern Time on Saturday. That's qualifying coverage. And the gate drops at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. 8 o'clock Eastern. That's 5 o'clock out there in Seattle.
Hi, folks. Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.